Kalakadosh Boker Or. I wanted to share with you a beautiful idea on this week's parasha, connecting the parasha with what we already have Shabbat. We know that the mitzvah of Shabbat is already brought down throughout the Torah in many different places. You have obviously parasha Bereshit, but then you have throughout whether it's going to be always Aseret Dibrot, so it's going to be parashat Yitro, parashat Vayetchanan. You're going to have parashat. We speak about it whether it's going to be in also Kitisa, whether it's going to be in Vayakel, right, in this week's parasha. So we speak a lot about the mitzvah of Shabbat. But there's a very interesting pasuk, and listen to this pasuk in this week's parasha. Lo teva'aru esh bechol moshevotechem b'yom Shabbat. You're not allowed to make a fire in all of your dwelling places on the day of Shabbat. So now we know that there's a whole thing that just like the fire was taken out, which means that you're not allowed to do any melacha on Shabbat. Why did it specifically speak about a fire? So therefore, just like the fire is singled out that you're going to be chayav on one melacha, so too you're going to be chayav on every single melacha on its own. Or if you do multiple, you're going to be chayav on its own. But the Tikkunei Zohar comes and he explains the pasuk a little bit differently. And he explains like this: fortunate is a person who prepares a beautiful house in his heart for Shabbat. His heart does not encounter sadness or anger on the day of the Shabbat. Because anger that is found in the heart of a person on Shabbat comes from the fire of Geinam. It comes from the fire of hell. And regarding that fire, the pasuk says, "Lo tevaru esh bechol mashotechem b'yom Shabbat," which means that anybody that comes angry on Shabbat is as if that he ignited a flame of Geinam. Okay? So the Zohar now is giving us a new understanding. We thought that it was a physical fire. It's not only a physical fire, we're talking about the fire of anger and machloket, which means that anytime somebody gets upset on Shabbat, it's ke'ilu that they're igniting the fire on Shabbat, the fire of Gehinam on Shabbat. But now the question is, one second, but what about during the week? Right? Why is it only Shabbat? You should never get angry. A person should never come and become angry. So why is it specifically on the Shabbat that it's so important? So the Rav Chida comes and he explains as follows. Of course that during the week a person should not get angry. It's a very big averah to get angry, 100%. Machloket, everything that you want, 100%. But he says, but during the week, the fires of Geinam are already there. On Shabbat, the fires of Geinam are extinguished, and the Rishaim are given to rest. So when a person gets angry on Shabbat, he is igniting the machloket or the anger in his heart, and it's not only being over on the Av Melacha, igniting a fire on Shabbat, but he's also starting the fires of Geinam, and he's awakening the punishment even on Shabbat itself. That's why it's mentioned on Shabbat, meaning during the week, anyway, there's already the fires of Geinam. There's already, so therefore, even though it's not good to get angry, it's not good machloket, it's not good to do all these things, but on Shabbat, it's an extra reason. Because since on Shabbat, there's no fires of Geinam, and now when we get angry, we are the ones that are awakening this fire, so therefore it's not going to be good. The Rav Chida, though, adds another incredible nikuda, another incredible point. Listen to this. The Gemara Masechet Shabbat, Tafkuf Yudchet Amud Bet, 118b says as follows. Kol HaShomer Shabbat Kilchato. If you keep Shabbat like Talacha, Afilu Oved Avodah Zara Kedor Enosh. Even if you're going to do Avodah Zara, like the generation of Enosh that they were doing Avodah Zara, Mochalin Lo. They forgive you. The question that we ask ourselves is, right, why? Why is it that Shabbat is a kapara, as an atonement for Avodah Zarah? What's the connection? Imagine right now, you have somebody doing Avodah Zarah. Avodah Zarah is the worst Avodah in the world. But now all of a sudden you keep Shabbat and that's it? What's the connection? What does Shabbat have to do with, right, this concept of Avodah Zarah? So the Rav Chida explains something incredible. Listen to this. And he says like this. When a person does an avirah with a limb of their body, with a certain body part, he made a blemish in that body part, and the only way to repair that blemish is to do a mitzvah with the same limb. And that's why they always say that, for example, if a person came, right, and they were doing things, whether it's going to be with their eyes, so use your eyes to learn Torah, right, to see mitzvot, your hands, so use your hands to do mitzvot, anything that you were doing, now you're going to come and you're going to do it with a mitzvah, and that's how you repair that limb with the avera. If not, that limb will stay with the blemish forever. Yeah, and even in eternity, in Shamayim, after 120, that limb will have a blemish. So he says every limb has the same thing. That chas v'shalom, if it was used for an avera, it requires a tikkun through a mitzvah. However, though, when somebody does avodah zarah, they go against the entire Torah. And when they go against the entire Torah, right, he was over on all the mitzvot of the Torah. And that's with all his limbs. So the question is, how could he do a mitzvah? How does he repair every mitzvah in the Torah? When a person does avodah zarah, it's keilu that he was kafar, he went against everything. So if he goes against everything, his entire body is blemished. How does he do mitzvot to repair the entire body? So Chazal tell us that Shabbat is shekula keneged kol mitzvot. Shabbat is equal to all the mitzvot of the Torah. And if you're going to mekayem the mitzvah properly of Shabbat, so therefore through keeping the Shabbat, you're repairing the mitzvah that you were doing with avodah zarah. But this is beautiful until now. But the Rav Chida adds even another step. And he says like this. An avera can extinguish a mitzvah. You remember? Avera mechaba mitzvah. An avera can extinguish a mitzvah. But an avera cannot extinguish the Torah. Because it's written that kiner mitzvah veTorah or. The mitzvah is a ner. You could turn off the ner. You cannot turn off the or. An avera could extinguish a mitzvah, but it cannot extinguish Torah. But that is only regarding an individual mitzvah. To do with Shabbat, which is equal to all the mitzvot, one avera or many averot cannot extinguish it. Meaning that he's saying that since it's going to be equal, right, to all these mitzvot, you cannot extinguish what it is, the Shabbat. But when somebody gets angry on Shabbat, Chazal say, Kol hakoes kilu avodah zarah, that if you get angry, you're doing avodah zarah. So therefore, in that sense, you're extinguishing the mitzvah of Shabbat itself. Therefore, that's why there had to be a special warning, don't get angry on Shabbat. Special warning. Why? Because if you get angry, you're doing avodah zarah. Now, if you're getting angry and doing avodah zarah on Shabbat, you're destroying the Shabbat in itself. So even though we said before that you cannot extinguish Shabbat because it's a mitzvah that encompasses all the mitzvot, but if you get angry on the Shabbat, now you're changing everything. Then now you're actually blemishing the actual mitzvah of the Shabbat in itself. So the truth is, we actually just spoke about it, right? When we spoke about it on, we had a Hilula for the Bilemelech Belezhinsk. And the Bilemelech Belezhinsk actually said something beautiful, right? He was the third level of Chassidut, meaning you had the Baal Shem Tov, the Magim Mizrich, and then it was the Noam Elimelech, okay? And he was the same parallel at the time of the Balatanya, of the, right, of the, of Zalman, right, of Miladi, right? And he says like this, something incredible, right? He says like this. He says that every single one of us, we know that the Ikar in this world is to fix our midot, right? This is also the Gaon Vilna, by the way. The Gaon Vilna said that the Ikar in this world is tikkun midot. Shvirata midot, he calls it. What does that mean? The only reason why we're here in this world is to fix our midot. And he says something incredible that he says that what we're supposed to do is we have to uproot it for 40 days. So for example, let's say, for example, a person is akshan, atzlan. He's very lazy. For 40 days, if you work upon your laziness and you start, running to do mitzvot, and you work on yourself, you're able to uproot that bad midah. So that's what we have to do. So if a person gets angry or whatever it is, right? So he has to internalize, right? And he has to calm himself down. But to the other extreme, and when he's going to go to that extreme, that's how he's going to do it. So now there's a Ben Ish Chai. Listen to this. A Ben Ish Chai comes and he warns us that not only do you have to be careful not to get angry on Shabbat. This already starts from Erev Shabbat, from Chatzot. On Erev Shabbat, it's a dangerous time that the Sitra Chara, that the Tumah comes and works very hard to stir up arguments in the house. So therefore, a person that's Yereh Shamayim, that's God-fearing person, he has to subdue his Yetzer Hara and make sure that no machloket gets ignited. Instead, he should actively seek shalom, right, within the home. Yeah, so mamash, exact opposite. He has to look for shalom. Bakesh shalom v'rodfehu. Look for it. So something incredible that we're actually saying here, right? Meaning, it doesn't only start on Shabbat. It's also on Erev Shabbat. But Erev Shabbat Hasot, midday, that's when it starts. So midday, that's when it already starting this concept. Now a person should understand that if he's involved in an argument, it looks like that maybe he's justified or that he's right, and so on and so forth. He says someone who truly has sechel understands that it could have happened. It's a mishap or whatever it is. And what happens? It's not really those that are being involved. It's a Satan that's working around. So if someone sees the mistakes on Erev Shabbat and he holds himself back, it's good for him in this world and also good for him in the next world. Okay? Now, they bring down also in the Sfarim of Rav Melech Belizhinsk. The reason why I told you we did a Hilula for Rav Melech Belizhinsk is because his Nachala, his Hilula was on the Kaf Aleph Adar, the 21st of Adar. Okay? So the year he said that every Erev Shabbat is like Erev Kippur. One more time. Every Erev Shabbat is like Erev Kippur. And therefore in his house, they would ask Mechila from each other every Erev Shabbat, just like they do on Erev Yom Kippur. Imagine what that is. To make sure that they don't want to fight. To make sure that... Imagine right now, I'm going to come to you Erev Kippur, and I ask you, listen, by the way, Mechila, right, do you forgive me? 5 minutes later, I'm going to give you a punch again? Or I'm going to call you a nickname? Or I'm going to do something? I just asked you for forgiveness. It's Erev Kippur. I'm not going to do that. They purposely made it like Erev Kippur to show that now I'm not going to fight with you. I just asked you for Mechila. Now I'm going to fight again. It doesn't make sense. You can't. It's too fresh. That's exactly what they used to do every single Erev Shabbat. Imagine what that was. Rav Aaron Kalnin, right, the Kaliner, he once was walking with his son, Rabbi Asher, on Erev Shabbat. And they passed the homes and there were chimneys, right? I know here in Miami they don't know what even a chimney is. But basically, the chimney is in very cold places. I come from Canada. We have a chimney in our house. Yeah, we used to light it even. Right? So what is it? You would come, you would heat up the wood, you would come and make a fire, and it would warm up a fireplace, right? It would warm everything up. It was very nice, right? That's what they used to do. Okay. So what happens is that he saw that there was smoke coming from the ovens, and it was been lit for cooking for Shabbat. So Rabbi Aaron came and he said to his son, do you see the malachim coming out of the smoke of the chimneys? Meaning when they came and they did it, it was for baking in the ovens and everything. They were cooking for Shabbat. He said, do you see the malachim coming out from there? He says, you should know that through the toil that the women put in preparing for Shabbat, listen very carefully, the work that the women come and they put in order to come and to prepare for Shabbat, they're able to reach incredible levels, incredible madregot, even close to Ruach HaKodesh. Meaning a woman, and that's what, if you remember, the Brisker Rav always used to say, a woman's chala on Erev Shabbat is her husband's shiur klali. Meaning the man comes and he gives a shiur and he's learning Torah, but the woman's shiur, her shiur, is her chala on Erev Shabbat, that she's baking for Lichvot Shabbat Kodesh. So he comes and he says, but when the pressure leads to panic, and then the panic leads to anger, they lose that opportunity. So you could have a woman that she's able to reach the incredible heights that she's working on Erev Shabbat. And without even realizing it, she's making all these malachim and she's creating malachim, angels, because of the preparation to the Shabbat. And she could reach such levels of being levels of almost mamash madrigat of Ruach HaKodesh. And all of a sudden, the second though that it's panic, because remember, on Erev Shabbat, there's always panic. On Erev Shabbat, doesn't matter what time Shabbat is, you're always late. On Erev Shabbat, doesn't matter what happens, there's always something that's going to come up. It's the Satan's rule. He needs that. He wants that. He's yearning for that. He's going to make sure that you're going to be sitting with your legs up all Erev Shabbat, enjoying yourself. You're going to come home from work. You're going to say, you know what? Shabbat is late this week. They just changed the time. We do late Shabbat. We've got all the time in the world. And all of a sudden, right before Shabbat, boom! Crunch time. This happens. That happens. When does the AC break? Always Erev Shabbat. When does this happen? Always Erev Shabbat. The plumbing, the this, that. Everything's always Erev Shabbat. Now, why? The Satan is waiting for that. He's going to make sure that your AC was supposed to work on the Thursday, even though it should have broke down, just so that way it breaks Erev Shabbat. And therefore, you've got all the pressure and the panic, and then you goes there, and then it leads to anger. And then he says, ha, I won. That's exactly what he wants. That's what he wants. So with all of this, we come and we see, look at the power of what it is, ka'as and machloket, that there's nothing to do. It should not be not on Shabbat or Erev Shabbat from Hatzot. That's a Ben Ish Chai. And it makes no difference whether you're building up frustration and that you were for years, or a child who comes and he wakes up and no, 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 no. Right? They come and they spill the grape juice on your suit, or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. The Yetzirah is going to show you. And therefore it's lichvod Shabbat. And since it's going to be lichvod Shabbat, what happens? A person has to be careful, because again, it's going to be lichvod Shabbat. So you be careful and you accept it, and you don't get angry on Shabbat. The Tomer Devorah, yeah, there's Ramak, Rabbi Moshe Cordovero. He came and he wrote, and he said that a person should not show anger even when he sees a child doing something inappropriate in matters of ruchaniyut. Shabbat is not a day of anger or criticism. So therefore we have to be careful with every single thought, every machshav, every dibur, everything. Which means you come and you see something, you want to say something, leave it on Shabbat. Shabbat is a day of rest. Shabbat is a day that we don't get angry. So therefore you see something, you wanted to say it, keep it inside. On Sunday, Motzei Shabbat, whenever you want, you come and you bring it up. But you don't say it on Shabbat. Shabbat is a day that you're not going to say anything. Yeah, so now there's a rabbi, his name was Rav Yisachar Weisberg, that he went and he said, you know what, I'm going to give you 5 practical etzot, 5 practical advice to protect ourselves from falling into the trap on Erev Shabbat. 5 different practical advices. So we're going to give them. Number 1, what you always need to do before doing anything. What is that? Before you want to do anything, what do you always have to do? Yeah? Before you do anything, what are you going to do? Pray. Yeah? Daven to Hashem. You should have a siyata dishmaya, heavenly help, that the entire home should be prepared for Shabbat with simcha and shalom. And even learning a small amount of musar, right, on Erev Shabbat, can help as well. Because remember, musar will always help out a human being. So learning ethics, learning about the importance of not getting angry, the importance of emunah and bitachon in Hashem, the importance of... So, but rule number 1, pray. You want something, pray for it. If you pray for it, it's going to come. So you need to pray, number 1. Number 2, this is very interesting, proper sleep on Thursday night. Both the husband and the wife, they should get proper sleep on Thursday night, even if it comes to the expense of preparing an extra dessert. Meaning the wife was going to say, you know what, but I wanted to make an extra dessert and this, and then she's going to stay up later. No, 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 no. Thursday nights, you come and you rest. Why? So you're going to come for Shabbat fully rested. So number 2 was getting proper rest. Why? We know that when a person is very tired, they don't have as much patience. And therefore they lose their patience easier. And therefore they have to be truly rested. That's going to be number 2. Number 3, eat properly on Erev Shabbat. What does that mean? Breakfast and lunch should be eaten so that hunger and exhaustion do not lead to tension in the home. Right? Everyone knows, right, that the first thing that a woman has to do when the husband comes home is what? Give him to eat. Because if not, right, it's not good news. Yeah? If he's hungry, it's not good. Right away, you give him to eat. Yeah? What does that mean? Right? The same thing is with the human being, meaning that if the husband didn't have a breakfast on Friday morning, and he didn't have a small lunch on Shabbat, on Erev Shabbat, what happens? What happens is it becomes more exhausted. He's with tension. He's hungry, and it's not good news. So what do? Make sure that you eat. Eat properly on Erev Shabbat. Have a good breakfast, right? If it's a long day like today, you could even have a lunch, no problem. Right? Again, I wouldn't say you have to have a motzi, but you have whatever. You have a small lunch, 12 o'clock, 12:30. Anyway, you're only going to eat the meal until, whatever it is, almost 8 o'clock or whatever, if you're doing early Shabbat, so maybe it's 7, right? But if not, then it's probably around almost 8-ish even, or 7:45, whatever. So therefore, what are you going to do? Right? You eat. When you eat properly, you're not going to be exhausted. You're not going to be in hunger, and therefore there's less tension, right? You have to remember that. Always very, very important. Okay? Number 4. Prepare whatever you can already from Thursday, so that way on Erev Shabbat, it's less pressured. I know a lot of people that already on Thursday night, the table is set. And when the table is set, right? Yeah, you do it, Yoel. Kol hakavod. Yeah? What does that mean? It's set. Why is it set? Because first of all, it's beautiful. It prepares your mindset that you're in the aura of the Shabbat. But not only that, there's less pressure. So anything that you could do, setting up timers, setting up whatever it is, you do it on Thursday night, right? You do it Lichot Shabbat Kodesh. You come and you say Lichot Shabbat Kodesh, and you're doing it for that. And then what happens when it comes Shabbat on Erev Shabbat? You're much more calm. Why? You don't have a list of 30 things to do. You have a list of 5 things to do, 10 things to do, whatever. But it's not why you already did as much as you could Erev Shabbat. Okay. The last one is preparing mentally. Preparing mentally is that things could possibly not go as exactly as planned, and therefore there's going to be delays, unexpected situations, and therefore once you realize that not everything needs to be exactly according to that detail, right, you're going to come in calmly and peacefully without saying anything that could hurt anyone. Why? Because again, you realize, right, that that's going to happen. If you are not ready for it, right, and by the way, you should know, somebody once told me this. He was a professor in the university, and he went and he made a simcha, he made a wedding. And he comes to me and he tells me, you should know, Rabbi, one thing. Whenever you make a simcha, right, sometimes you're going to be very upset. I said, why? You just made a simcha. He says, no, because you planned A, B, C, D, E, F. But then what happens is it didn't happen. It didn't come to fruition. So you get angry or you get upset. So he says, but I'm going to tell you something. He says, nobody knows what you prepared. Since nobody knows what you prepared, you thought that you were going to give them A, B. Even if you gave them A, B, C, D, they're still happy. So if they're happy and your guests are happy and the Khatan and Kala are happy, what do you care that you prepared also E, F, G, H, I? It doesn't matter. They don't need it, right? And therefore, why are you going to get upset? Which means that mentally you're already preparing that nothing goes exactly the way that you plan. What does that mean? You think that it's going to be exactly this. I want the chuppah to start exactly this time, and I wanted this rabbi to be here this time, and all of a sudden that rabbi got stuck up in the traffic, and the other thing happened and the Kabbalah Panim took another 10 minutes, and then all of a sudden they had to rush it a little bit more because it's right before the Shkia, and you're going back, and then 1 second. But look what it is. Why? Because you internalize and you realize that you're preparing yourself. That you say, you know what? I'm not the one in control. I could only one, so I'm going to do my due diligence. It comes out, thank you Hashem, Chazaku Baruch. If it doesn't come out, it was the will of Hashem. So therefore, you're going to start beating yourself for it. You're going to start hating yourself. What? Whatever Hashem wants, that's it. And you know what? Half the people don't even know. It's like a caterer at a wedding that, let's say he wanted to take out an extra dish or he wanted to do something. If something happens to that dish, nothing happens. You know why? Because nobody knew it was supposed to come anyway. Right? If nobody knew, so therefore, okay, fine. He wanted to do it. It didn't work out. It didn't work out, but that's it. If nobody knows and you're the one, so therefore that's it. You have to take it easy. So that's it. By preparing mentally, it changes the entire atmosphere of that you're not going to get upset. So therefore, one more time, Chazara, quick revision. 5 steps to have a beautiful Erev Shabbat. Number 1, pray. Pray that we should have Siyata Dishmaya, that Bezrat Hashem, that everything should go with peace, without any arguments, without any tension, with beautifully, calmly. It should be a beautiful Erev Shabbat and Shabbat. Learning Musar is also for sure going to help out. Number 2, sleep. Proper sleep. Right? Whenever a person has proper sleep, they're going to be less exhausted. They're going to have more patience. There'll be more calm. There won't be as much tension. Beautiful. Number 3, eating properly. Right? Because again, if you eat properly on Erev Shabbat in the morning, breakfast and lunch, right? Especially now that the day is late, so you could have a quick lunch or whatever it is. So then when you come, you're not hungry, you're not exhausted. So then when the husband, he's already calm. He's not, in this mood. Number 4, prepare whatever you can already from the Thursday, right? From Thursday night already. You come, you prepare everything that you can, whether it's certain shopping, whether it's going to be certain things, you prepare. The last one is preparing yourself mentally. And when you prepare mentally, that not everything will go exactly the way that you plan, because we're not the ones in the driver's seat. We're not the ones in the control. We're ki'ilu in the driver's seat, but remember, you can't control the guy beside you that he's going to start, turning into your lane and you have to turn the other way, or all of a sudden a guy that wants to go through a red light and you have to make the sudden stop and all of a sudden. So even if you are in the driver's seat ki'ilu, at the end of the day, there's a lot of moving things on the pond. And therefore, you always have to be ready that it's not going to go exactly the way that you want, right? Even if you're the driver, if there's now an accident in front of you, right, Barminan, or there's traffic or whatever it is, you can do whatever you want, but there's nothing really going to help. And therefore, if you prepare yourself mentally that it doesn't go exactly the way that you plan, so therefore you'll accept it much easier, right? The way that it's supposed to be, Bezrat Hashem.